right, first and foremost, good morning, everybody. And thank you so much for being here and joining us this morning. I'm in a particularly good mood today because it is my birthday. And I'm not sharing that with you to troll for some birthday greetings, but every ounce of positive reinforcement is both welcomed and appreciated. So taking that into consideration, the alphabet soup after my name basically says that I embrace how I deal with people from a variety of different vantage points. I am a behavior analyst. I've been a very proud behavior analyst since the 1990s. And I started as a Florida CBA, was grandfathered in to the board when the board was promulgated and created in 2000. And I've also served as a licensed mental health counselor for the state of Florida and a national board certified counselor since 1995, 96. So I look at things differently. I not only approach situations by analyzing the overt or external responses in terms of human behavior, but I also want to go ahead and understand exactly how people think. Even B.F. Skinner said thinking is behavior. So I'm not doing anything outside of the scope of practice, but that's just a little bit about me. I'm joined with two team members, Amanda Jackson, who is a board certified behavior analyst, and the newest team member is Zach Sims. His first day is today as far as this position, but by no means is he a stranger to what we do here at APD. And I'm certain that a lot of you who are listening have probably had interactions with both Amanda and Zach. So we're looking forward to moving forward with you guys, and anticipate and welcome any questions or comments that you have. So the other special thank you I want to go ahead and extend is to a gentleman who has been instrumental in sharing a lot of information with us here at APD, in not only the creation and revision of the next generation QSI or NGQSI, but also facilitation and teaching dynamics for folks, including you guys, the waiver support coordinators. So I wanted to go ahead and say thank you to him. The first thing that I want you to know about this training is that we're focusing on process. We're not really focusing too much on content. It's not a skill task-oriented how you do a safety plan, how you do these. This is basically a process, as far as critical thinking is concerned, that needs to be a prerequisite skill that you hone and shape and craft. You are the eyes and the ears and boots on the ground for your individual consumers and their families. So first and foremost, in order for you to recognize what your role is, one of the main 5 reasons that you need to develop critical thinking skills and become a critical thinker is realize that you are a team player. And you help facilitate and guide, you help connect, you help collaborate, but you are the team leader at times, and you're also a team player. So that's the first reason. What it means to actually team is it's a group-based process. It's not group therapy, okay? Sometimes it's gonna feel that way, all right? Especially when, in our world, we deal with behavioral issues and maladaptive behavior. So there's a lot of grouping and teaming that goes on, especially when someone is in crisis. But that's not necessarily the only time that you need to team. You also need to be open and available to team when someone is doing very well. And that's not just exclusive to behavioral progress, but let's say, for example, someone has been working on a new prerequisite skill and they finally get it. Those are some things that you need to participate in, that you need to champion with the individual. And if someone is having issues with getting to that point, this is also part of the skill. Maybe there's some things that you bring to the table that the other team members don't realize. Every single person in that individual's life has something to contribute that would help facilitate growth and help provide that necessary support for that person. So thinking in terms of what you know with regard to your experience set, and it's not just what you've been clinically trained to do, but no person grows up in a vacuum. You have all of these life experiences that you can bring and help support and cultivate and shape the environment for that person. Reasoning. Reasoning is another, it's another skill that really needs to be practiced, rehearsed, and cultivated. And decision making, yes, no. The decision making process that I've always used is, does the risk and the benefit, does it balance? Does the risk of us doing this strategy or not doing this intervention outweigh the benefit of doing or not doing this intervention? And just going back and forth and weighing those things out, you too can do that as a waiver support coordinator. All right, appropriate people work together. That word appropriate, I know some people can agree to disagree on this, but one thing that I've tried to instill and shape as well is you have to have the right people in the right seat on the bus. Because otherwise, if you have a bus with a bunch of seats in it and everybody is in the wrong seat, you're not going to move very far, okay? And I know that sounds overly simplistic, but if you take that metaphor out and think in terms of, you want the person to move forward, you want your consumer to progress. So if there's some folks on your team that perhaps either need to be coached, expectations need to be clarified, you yourself need to take a step back as the waiver support coordinator and look at the big picture and say, okay, what do we need to do? What does that individual need with regard to receiving services? And I know habilitation is kind of an old antiquated term, all right? But in terms of what that consumer needs in order to, let's say, for example, you want, he or she would like to attend ADT, and ADT is 2 blocks away. If they use a power wheelchair for mobility, what are some things that you need to do in order to help that person be as independent as possible? Because that's ultimately what we are trying to do, is we want people to perform, we want people to succeed, and we want people to get to the point where they don't need us anymore. And I know that's a hard thing for a lot of people to digest, but there's some services that the person's going to need lifetime, and there's other services where perhaps you kind of go in and you do, I call it a tune-up, therapeutic tune-up over the years, where I kind of need to just go in and do a follow-up type of thing. So looking at those situations and really embracing that is very important. How you achieve the team, how you build, cultivate, shape your team is you have to have these 6 C's. You have to communicate. And the communication is a 2-way street. It's biologically and physiologically impossible for you to talk and listen at the same time. So communication not only involves you expressing, but also receiving. You have to be willing to hear certain things. Coordination, I know that's in the job title, is support coordination, which means accessing, looking to see what's out there, pulling in your resources, giving the person choice, having them assess pros and cons of each particular service is important. Consensus. There may be certain situations where a person wants to do certain things that the consensus of their support team may not feel is in their best interest. So sometimes that's a discussion that you need to have among yourselves in that team. Collaboration. It's it's kind of, when I look at service delivery for folks, I see it as a marathon. It's not a sprint, okay? A lot of times you have to hand off the baton to somebody else and they pick it up and they run with it until they exhaust what they can do, and then they hand off the baton to somebody else. Because what we do every day with our individuals can be very draining on us. It's very draining on them. So we need to make sure that we're constantly handing off that baton, and that requires collaboration. Commitment. People that commit to serving our individuals need to do so with an open mind and a clear view of why you're there. And what ends up happening a lot of times is people come into this field thinking, oh, and this is a quote, oh, I want to be able to pay my mortgage, so what can I do? How can I go help those little people who have these disabilities? That I'm cleaning up a quote from a prospective applicant who wanted to be a provider. So what that brings to the table is you question somebody's motives with regard to why do they want to work with our folks. The commitment needs to be pure and the commitment needs to be there, okay? Behavioral crises, I know for a fact, don't happen Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So we're looking at commitments outside of the scope of what would be referred to as normal business hours. And contribution. Think about everything that you can do and everything that you've done thus far for your folks. And before you go to sleep at night, and I know you're probably sitting there kind of giggling to yourself saying, this is different from what I've heard any other behavior analyst say. But if you think in terms of what contribution you did, you had a part in that particular day for that particular person, okay? You might have had 20 other things that went on that day that just kind of drained and zapped your energy. But if you can think of that one thing, maybe, or perhaps an individual consumer that you've been working with for, let's say, 6 months or a year, has finally got that task or that step or that service, that's pretty cool. One example I can think of recently is all of the folks that attended the Night to Shine prom, okay? Those of you that know me know I'm a diehard Seminole. So for me to say anything positive about Tim Tebow is a stretch, but I'm gonna do it anyway, okay? He is so pure of heart, and he gets it. He has the ability to really get in there and deal with people. And it doesn't matter whether they're, multimillionaires or athletes. It doesn't matter. He treats everybody the same way. And I've analyzed his behavior, okay? When he not only played for the Gators, but he played for the Jets. I'm a Dolphin fan and a Seminole fan, so empathize, talk amongst yourselves, okay? But as far as what he does, he contributes. He looks to see exactly what he can do every day. And we do the same thing. So I guess what I want to do is pause here and take a look at these 6 C's and just kind of get some feedback and input from you guys as far as what you think, or some examples recently that you've seen, how you have exhibited or experienced maybe one of the C's. Oh, thank you guys for all the birthday wishes. That's very sweet.
So go ahead and use the questions box or chat box that you guys have on your control panel, and send your messages in. You can, I believe, you have an option to send to the host, I think is the word they use on your end. But there's a drop-down menu, and you can either click my name, Elizabeth, or you can send to host or presenter. That might be the other one. Is this the question you want an answer?
If you can look at the 6 C's where you're talking about the communication, commitment, collaboration, those are 3 of them. If you look at them and think in terms of an example in which you've nailed that one C in teaming lately, just real quick, just a couple of words about an example. I make sure that I not only communicate, but allow my community. Yes, that is incredibly important, Vivian.
They can't see it, so give it to them.
As far as trying to really listen to their needs rather than talk to them about their needs. Yes, yes. I appreciate that example. If you've been to Outback lately, you know, they're very good at customer service. And an example of the communication piece that's so influential is when they take your order, they don't stand over you and jot things down on a pad. They actually get in the booth with you and sit down and get you at eye level. And that's one way in which they can actually bond with their customers. So commitment, Jorge, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Going above and beyond our responsibilities for the consumer's benefits. Yes, I see that. And I'm glad that you do too. And sometimes you know, it's a 24/7 commitment. And sometimes there's no pats on the back per se, but making a difference in someone's life is a huge pat on the back. Nancy, collaboration, making sure everyone is on the same page with consumers' likes and dislikes. Absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes we talked about this recently where I did a training on trauma-informed care, which I think is in the Pokey coming up sometime this year for you guys. Is one man's, you've heard the expression, one man's junk is another man's treasure type of thing. One person's experience or one person's likes may be somebody else's dislikes. Example I can think of is not everybody likes karaoke, but if your consumer wants to go to karaoke, then you find the nearest karaoke place and you take it on. To me, you have totally committed, yes, to be totally committed to your consumers. If you're not in the right field, absolutely. Consensus, helping educate individual providers, guardians, families on choice and rights, absolutely. That is important. Informed consent means just that. It's not just about getting a signature on a piece of paper that says, okay, yeah, you've gone over, you support coordinator have gone over this support plan with me. What's in that support plan? It needs to matter. Otherwise, it's not worth the paper that it's printed on, okay? Discussing intentions, having a meeting with the client's father, making a list of things he would like to do. We are in the business of trying to reinforce and strengthen people's dreaming abilities, not in the business of killing the dreams, okay? We need to make sure that we reinforce the ability to dream. Everybody got on the same page and the individual got medical attention. That's good. That's incredibly important. You're laughing at me. I can hear you over there.
Sorry.
That's okay. No. Okay. We use all 6 with families, providers, and consumers. Absolutely. That's wonderful. You work with Gary in a group. If you haven't talked it through as a group, yes. Yes, things need to be, if you are on an individual support plan team, then absolutely you need to have the 6 C's present, and you need to make sure that you're offering support. It's okay for you to laugh too. Humor is a wonderful thing. Discussing options with the group home operator and suggesting things that could be included in the daily routine. And that's coming from a very familiar asker. Hi, Lorena. And making sure that you really have a real good idea and a real good comprehension of what the person clearly is expressing as far as a desire and a want, and making sure that everyone is on the same page, okay? There's some things that individual providers can assist with, and then there's other things that you can basically hook the person up with those resources. And collaborating is very important. Individual input, absolutely, their input matters. And a lot of times if they can't articulate those things to you, you'll be able to tell. You'll be able to assess and see exactly what the person wants and needs. Okay, I think These are great questions and wonderful feedback. Thank you, guys. I'll be posing another question in a little bit. Second, open-mindedness. Now, when you are using your critical thinking skills, I mean, I could have put the picture up here. That's a picture of a parachute. And it basically says, you know, your mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open. But you all have pretty much, oh, well, the quote's there. Okay. The picture isn't, but the quote is there. Okay. Having an open mind is very important. Your perspectives and emotions, you need to understand and respect the fact that when you go into someone's home, and when you walk into their world, you are entering their world, their culture, their trauma history, okay? And all of those norms and mores that are that have helped shape that person, you are a guest in their particular environment. So keeping that in mind and really evaluating and seeing exactly where they're coming from and what their perspectives are. Emotions, there are some things that are incredibly important to them. I'm laughing because if I get to meet you personally at some point, you will find out very soon and very fast that I'm a hugger. And I have been a hugger for a very long time. I will side hug, I will high five, you know, I just do that because that's the kind of person that I am. Okay. Some people don't like that. So I, you know, elbow bump or fist bump and that kind of stuff. But looking at a person's emotions and their facial expressions will also give you some real good tells as far as what you're communicating and your critical thinking and interpretation going back and forth is working. Evaluating truth versus usefulness. There's a lot of stuff that we get told on the service provision end. There's a lot of things from a behavior analyst standpoint or behavior analysis standpoint. You watch, you assess, you analyze data, and then, you know, you may have a written report. What I always do is I read the written report and I like to go out and watch because I want to see if what's on paper is actually what's happening. Okay, so evaluating credibility and truth, and is that useful? Do you have belief? Do you have, does the person that is expressing these things to you from a service provision standpoint, is there a credibility issue? Can you believe in what they say, type of thing? And then generalizations, these are some things that you need to be aware of, your own biases, okay? A lot of folks who are new to the field, I remember what that was like. You start off and you're so excited. Many years ago, I was part of a startup group that opened up one of the first group homes that deinstitutionalized a group of folks from South Florida State Hospital. And I remember going there on my first day and thinking, I'm making a difference. I'm pulling people out of that state hospital. And they're living in the community and things are going to be great. Yeah, there was a lot more to it, okay? But that mindset is what guided the change. But I didn't get stuck in my generalization. I didn't think, well, they're in a state hospital, they're in an institution. They need to stay there. There's a reason why they're in the institution. They need to stay there. This practice, this field has been about busting those generalizations. And that is a major job description or aspect of what you're doing every day. You are busting a lot of these stereotypical generalizations that people hold. Time management is also an issue. I laugh because nowhere do you have to manage your time wisely better than when you're dealing with the complexities of someone's life, okay? And making sure that you not only have time to devote professionally, but that you also take time for self-care. That's you, not your individual, okay? But that's you. You need to have that balance in making sure that you have that self-care mentality in your mind as well. Okay. All right. Personal standards. Now, This isn't about what you wear every day. This isn't about what kind of car you drive. This is about who you are, being clear, being accurate. If you don't know an answer to a question, find out. Honing your skills with precision, okay? Think in terms of what it's like to be a surgeon. They can't just cut randomly. They have to be very precise. As a behavior analyst, we have to be incredibly precise, right? There are certain operational definitions that a behavior for a specific individual the definition is specific to that person. It's not a generalized global definition or molar definition. It has to be relevant. Is there relevance? Is there something that you need to do in order to stay on track? Okay. And as far as depth is concerned, where you're looking at a support plan, and I know back in the day with the ICFs, where we had to look at 5-year LTEIs, long-term expectations for independence. We do something very similar with regard to the support planning that we do for our folks, where we're looking and we're saying, where do we see that person in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, okay? So having some forward thinking is incredibly important. The breadth of it, making sure that we're looking at it from all angles, okay? If this person lives at their home with their mother and their father now, and their mom and dad they're getting older, okay? What's going to happen to that person in 3 years when perhaps mom or dad isn't there and there's only one parent? Or quite honestly, we have a lot of folks that live in single parent households. What happens if their caretaker isn't there anymore? So being able to look at it from another perspective and consider that other person's point of view is important. Does this make sense? Looking at the logic. I know people have said that common sense is kind of an oxymoron now, right? But does the logic follow the plan? Can you take a step back and look at it and say, does this make sense? The significance, why is it important? I know one of the questions is it important? Well, sure. It's important to that person. That's the significance, okay? It may not seem very significant to you, but it is huge for that person. And then being fair. Something that needs to be taken into consideration, especially when you're looking at an individual who perhaps lives in a group home, is if that person wants to play their music, this is an overly simplistic example, but this one particular consumer I worked with for years, I had been a provider for over 30 years, and so I know exactly what people are dealing with in the trenches as well. If somebody wants to play Metallica at 6 o'clock in the morning and their roommate likes El Divo, my mother's favorite opera group is El Divo. If you don't know who they are, look them up. They're really, really cute, by the way. But anyway, there's a conflict there. Is that fair? Well, that person has the right to listen to El Divo just like you have the right to listen to Metallica. So is that fair? Are you being fair to everybody? Okay. So now what I want you guys to do is take a step back and look at this and look at these concepts, these intellectual standards, and just comment on maybe 1 or 2 of them and think in terms of what you've experienced lately that might have challenged one of those intellectual standards.
And you can go ahead and use that same chat/questions box to send those ideas in. I know some of you mentioned that you weren't able to see people's comments, and that's okay because of how the webinar is set up. You guys may not be able to see other people's comments, but send yours in. We will be reading them so that everyone can hear and know what people are saying.
Mm-hmm. I know there's one that just popped up asking for details on goals. Thank you, Amanda, from the ADT instead of just reading them. That offers clarity, so that's good. Had some trouble hearing the question. Okay, I will clarify and provide clarity to the question. On the slide that has the intellectual standards, starting with clarity and ending with fairness, can you think of some examples that you've dealt with lately in terms of depths of situation due to time constraints? Yeah, a lot of times what ends up happening is you have a certain amount of time and you have to get a lot of things in with regard to that time frame. Accuracy definitely matters. Absolutely, I agree. As far as making sure that what we are getting and looking at the big picture of those situations, and so that you take a step back and you look at everything in context rather than just the minuscule details. Absolutely. Giving multiple opportunities to really talk and plan it over and create a goal and making it happen. It's really, really cool when something like that happens, right, Jorge? And you can take a step back and know that you played an integral part in that. Supporting, understanding the relevance of the goals, absolutely. Guardianship. Guardianship is a huge issue. And there's so many ways in which someone can advocate for a family member to become a guardian and not at a huge financial expense. Getting in-depth medical care, yes. We cannot do what we do in the behavior analysis world unless we rule in or rule out medical, so I agree with you. Working with the agency for a person who has Crohn's disease, absolutely. You're gonna love what we've done with the NGQSI because we really brought it into capturing a lot of the disabilities and diseases, unfortunately, that affect our individuals just like they affect the general population. But really just acknowledging and embracing that these things happen and we have to deal with, we have to have a plan of attack in order to deal with that. Significance and keeping health and safety as priority, absolutely. Helping others see what is important for that person, that is incredibly important. And a lot of times the communication may be awry, perhaps if it's to a child or from a child to a parent. And I know issues of gender identity have come up lately. A lot of times people don't see eye to eye. The issue and the concept of sexuality has also presented a lot of challenges over the years. So I get it. And these are just conflicts and situations that we deal with every day. We just keep it moving. Communicating with family members is incredibly important for that person, especially if they've moved out. You think about when you moved out, maybe you went to college and you moved and your parents had the empty nest and they swore up and down they were gonna, redo your room into a gym. They really missed you. They just didn't want you to know that, right? It's incredibly compounded for our individuals who are moving out. And then you have the parent who has the mindset of nobody can take care of my child better than I can. Compounding that with the whole issue of they have a disability, I need to be a helicopter parent. All of these things need to be taken into consideration when you're sitting down talking with that person and looking at the person in context with regard to moving forward in their life. Okay. And I understood it's a very difficult situation, yes, to talk with the parents, absolutely, absolutely. And planning, yes, rehab. That is a major issue as far as how that family can provide support and stepping in last minute. I agree with you, Bridget. It is definitely an issue. Okay. Thank you guys. Your input is wonderful and your questions and situations. I hope what we're trying to do is bridge the gap here so that when you know you have these support plans coming up or quarterly meetings or you're going into, you're sitting down and being interviewed by a prospective consumer, that you think about these standards, that you're clear, that you decide what to believe using these standards, okay? So the first step is actually understanding the content. Now the second part is the process. How are you going to put it in place? You need to be very clear and accurate. It needs to be relevant. You can't come in with a whole preconceived script of what you think the person needs to hear. The key people that need to be involved, the relevance of that collection or complement of the team. IDT or interdisciplinary teams are not mutually exclusive to institutions. Even if the person is living in the community, they still rely on a team network, that network of folks that will provide that support for that person to continue. It has to be logical, right? We want to try to be as logical as we can, not completely unemotional, but be logical and be fair moving forward. All right, reason 4. So we're getting to the end here. Reason 4. Go back one. Sorry. No, that's okay. Okay, acquired skills. This is, I know this is a lot of information, and that's good because you get what these intellectual standards are. You get what needs to make up the whole critical thinking process. And the fact that you have acquired or maybe kind of dusted off these concepts and will shape them into skills that you practice every day with your consumers and perhaps other people as well. That you start thinking and you're looking for clarity and you're looking for accuracy. Your reasoning skills as far as assessing what's going on and then evaluating what your course of action is going to be. When you problem solve, you're looking to see what the pros and the cons are, what the barriers and the successes are, right? You're taking all of these things into consideration and then making a decision in order to continue, making a decision of what supports that person needs and what strategies you need to move in the direction of in order to best present the best set of choices for that person. And then, of course, analyzing, what did you do this year? You're asking that of your consumer and the family and their system of provider supports, but also take a step back and realize, we're not going to go back to the very first slide, but if you remember, one of the first slides was, you're the team lead, okay? You're the cheerleader. You are the one that's kind of stepping in and stepping out. And again, I need to just reinforce this, that the better we do our jobs, the quicker we work our way out of the jobs. But with how many people we have that we currently serve and that are waiting for our services, there will be work. Many, many, many examples and opportunities for this critical thinking process for you to apply to these consumers and these consumers' lives for years to come. Okay. Last reason, and you might have heard it before, I think it was on a previous slide, but I like to reinforce important skills. Good thinkers use the intellectual standards to decide what to believe and to keep that thinking, that pattern of thinking on track, okay? Hone your skills, use your data, get these pieces of information, be open, assess your communities, okay? Not everything that's going to help somebody costs money. Look for simple solutions at first, okay? Be logical, be fair, be open, okay? So, the collaboration piece, you are the team lead. The team can be big or small, right? But first and foremost, you are the team lead that's coordinating and sharing this information. I don't want people to get upset and think, well, it's person-centered planning, ergo the consumer is the team lead. You're absolutely right. They state what they need, but you are the leader in coordinating those services and supports, okay? Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you do. And I have, I guess, about 19 minutes now for just take a step back, let all of this kind of sink in. And what do you think? How can you, moving forward as of today, how can you use these techniques or some of these techniques and these standards in your everyday practice? So just go ahead and just in a couple of words using that chat box, what can you do? What can you use that we've talked about today? What kind of aha experiences or epiphanies did you perhaps have as a result of some of the information that we've talked about today? Okay. And it's in the question box, that's where they are,
Yeah.
right?
Questions or chat box. I don't remember the title that you guys see.
Okay. Okay, waiver support coordinators need to use these strategies to review assessment information to identify client needs and develop strategies on the support plan. Yes. You need to be able to see the connection between the needs and the strategies and what makes sense. Making sure all supports communicate and work together. That is incredibly important, Brandy. You're absolutely right. I think House Bill 575 is going through where they are going to acknowledge by state to allow RBTs or registered behavior technicians in the classroom, and I think that's a wonderful thing. I'm a little biased, I know. To look at issues from all views, absolutely, absolutely, Patricia. Raymond says encouraging, live by example. Yes. Continuously clarify goals. Yes. I tell people goals are written on computer for a reason, so we can go in and tweak them. That's fine. Need to work on my time management? Yes. Absolutely. Catherine, thank you for your honesty and candid offer. You get into this field because you want to make things better for people. You want to help. But sometimes what ends up happening is we put all of the other folks first and we put ourselves last. I'm telling you, there's nothing wrong with self-care. Get that balance. It's going to take a while to kind of establish it, but you can do it. Encouraging members of the team, Susan, you're right, encouraging, they call each other and build lines of communication. Absolutely, absolutely. It doesn't always have to go through you. So establishing and facilitating that communication, and then you can kind of do, I can't remember the character's name from Saturday Night Live, but she used to say coffee talk amongst yourselves. If you hook people up, then they can talk amongst themselves, and that connection is there. Reminding people to take a step back, absolutely, Sadie, you're absolutely right. Sometimes it's humbling, you're not always right. That's the first thing that I always tell people is I don't have all the answers. But I'm pretty confident in my ability to build teams. I know that teams work, and I rely on input. And I have 2 of my team members sitting here because it's so important, okay? So listening to the needs rather than the team identifying needs, yes, yes. Keeping emotions out of it, absolutely, Janice, you're right. Sometimes it's easier said than done, you know, because again, I know the reason why everybody got into this field was because of the money, right? No, you chose this field because you care about people. And if you care, that's a prerequisite skill that's either you have or you don't. And if you have it, then emotions are real difficult to keep out of sometimes, but do the best you can. And acknowledging that is one. Being clearer and accurate, absolutely, absolutely. And use the intellectual standards to decide what to believe. Let the data be your guide. That's what we always say. Is if it's data driven and you've got that information, you've got to let the data be your guide. They need to be looking at documents. Oh yeah, provider documentation, absolutely. One example is if somebody has a goal to go out into the community. Van rides are not community inclusion, okay? And going to a fast food restaurant every single day is questionable, especially if someone has a diagnosis of an eating disorder. So it needs to make sense, okay? Love that you emphasize you need to work together when things are going well. Yes, 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 Sharice, thank you. And thank you for the feedback. we have a tendency to always dwell on the negative, right? And always be reactive. You got to be proactive because positive reinforcement is infectious. Just like the negativity is infectious, you can compound positivity too. Do it. Thank you. Realizing that waiver support coordinators need to strategize. Yeah, you need to have a plan. Have the plan and implement it. Incorporate the providers. There are some things you don't know what people can do until you ask them. And I don't remember what the quote was, but you don't know how strong you are until you are encountered with a reason to be strong. And I know that's terrible, and I will look it up and clean it up. I apologize, okay? But something along the lines of just making sure that you acknowledge, okay, yeah, this is something I can do, all right? Feeling like a consumer's going in circles with goals, change it up. Go through the 6 Cs, absolutely. That's a wonderful, wonderful suggestion, Amanda. If you're sitting in a quarterly meeting and you're saying, hey, we're stuck in the weeds here. What can we do to change this up? Go through those 6 Cs and use that overlay as a way in which to come up with fresh ideas. So I really like that suggestion, Amanda. Brenda, try to get consensus with mom who does not want son to move out. Oh, we all encounter that, okay? Well, let's just say I'm older than 50, okay? My mom is here visiting, but to her, I will always be 8 years old, all right? And she doesn't want to let me go. There's no reason why we have to destroy that for mom, but working with her to get consensus so that mom is able to kind of let go, okay? Team members being positive and open-minded, not just one-sided or predetermined. Yeah, you know, if you get to the point where you've been in the field for a while, you tend to develop some jaded thinking, right? But having a predetermined, preconceived notion of what's going to happen and what you're going to do and having that mindset, that closed off mindset, is not going to benefit the individual. So being positive and open-minded is very important. Okay. Thanks, Catherine, and thanks, Diana. Clarity, planning ahead, having the difficult, yes, having those difficult conversations. You know, we deal with people's lives. According to Dr. John Bailey from FSU, he's professor emeritus of FSU and a very influential and founding member of BABA, we save lives. We as a team, not just behavior analysts, we as a team save lives. It's difficult, okay? It's very difficult out there, and what you do really, really helps. Take the list of thinking skills and take critical thinking skills, use them to create the support plan meeting. Debbie, that is a wonderful suggestion. And that was what my goal was today, was to try to facilitate that, is just using it. I have those standards, just to let you know, this isn't just something I peeled out of a book, okay? I have this on the intellectual standards. I have this handout on cardstock, and I keep it strategically placed somewhere around my office so that before I open my mouth every day, I take a look at it and say, okay, I got to approach this with and I go through it. So I use these techniques as well. Goals change, needs change, absolutely. Right. Making sure everyone is on the same page. Yes, absolutely. Nick, making sure the goals of the consumer are realistic goals that can be accomplished. Absolutely. Coffee, Linda Richardson, thank you. Thanks, Luria. Knowing that you are the part of the team is great so that you can get different perspectives and ideas. Absolutely, Patricia, you're right. Be teachable. Yes, Bridget, absolutely. We are definitely not always right, but we are also definitely not always wrong either. But having that teachable mentality and having an open mind is incredibly important. Keep an open mind to consumers' lifestyles. You have to. Really having people think through their decisions. Yes, absolutely. Outside of the box, thinking outside of the box, and always remembering to listen to and support. Yes, the direct care providers, absolutely. They are your folks in the trenches, and do not underestimate their importance and significance, because they will give you a lot more information, a lot of times more so than some of the family members, about what's going on. Okay. Helping to explore new thoughts and ideas to keep things fresh. Absolutely. Thank you, Amber. Managing time better, helping individuals celebrate successes. Yes. Yes. I always try to end a quarterly meeting or a monthly meeting whenever I was reviewing individual plans with something that was good. Whether it's a goal that they need to work on that's really good and they've got a real good idea of what they're going to do, or something that they just accomplished, so that you end these meetings on a positive note, okay? Making sure the consumer is safe and healthy, absolutely, absolutely, okay? The strategies to gather information and balance what's important, absolutely, thank you, thank you, thank you. What will you change about your process? So some of these things that you've shared, I hope that you have nuggets that you can take and use. And if you would like, what we can do is scan an email and make this available. Okay. I think you have the under the handouts, one of the things that you have is the intellectual standards and help you think better. And you can pull anything out of this handout that will help facilitate your critical thinking skills when you are there with that consumer and you are directing the ship, okay? If you are having issues with downloading the handouts, we can make sure that we address that. And I'm glad, Debbie, that you said you're going to use these tools. I appreciate that. Please, I welcome any feedback, input, questions at all, during or after this particular training. And do you have any questions right now?
Yeah, go ahead and take the last, I guess like 4 to 5 minutes. Send us your questions, things that you maybe need some more clarity on, or if there's a particular issue that's been weighing on you, now's a good time to send those in, and we can try to address those. All of the materials and the handouts, they go up on our website. So probably by this afternoon, if not, it'll be Monday morning. The handouts and the slides themselves are up on the website. So for those who are having trouble today, you can just wait a couple hours and you should have them online.
Getting a guardian for someone without family, I know that that's an issue for a lot of folks, and I know that there are public guardian companies that exist in Florida, but that is something that we have been, that's an objective that we've been trying to research. I think, go ahead, Rachel, if you wouldn't mind, email me directly at, okay, Kristen, Kristin.Korinko, Korinko, at apdcares.org. And what I'll do is I'll email you some names in your region that potentially you can get connected up with. The handouts on apdcares.org, and can we get a training certificate for this app?
Yep, I'll talk to you guys about that at the end.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. And is there any other question? The handouts will be on apdcares.org. And okay, you all need the card. Okay, what I'll do is I'll pull that information that I have. And oh, thank you, Janice, I appreciate that. As far as the guardianship information, you're more than welcome to what I have. That's not a problem. I'll share that with all of you. Okay.
Okay. Well, if there are no other questions.
Oh, my email? Okay, it's if you go to the very first screen on this on the PowerPoint, it's KRIS as in Sam, TIN. So it's Kristen, and yeah, it's Kristen, KRISTIN .Korinko, KORINKO at apdcares.org. That's my email.
It should be in the chat box if you can't see it. It's the same format as all APD email addresses. So you can always email me and I can forward it if you can't
Okay.
get to Kristen.
And then the other thing too is we did a webinar a little while back about behavior analysis issues with regard to the waiver support coordinators. I just want to remind you guys that that is in your toolbox and that's available to you. If you have any questions as things start to roll out with iConnect and different changes, please do not hesitate to ask and reach out and ask questions. We'll do everything we can to support you. Again, thank you for all that you do and have a wonderful day.